So, I don't watch much television. As far as the RTE and government are concerned, I don't watch any television. This, Mr. Government Man, this isn't a television. This is a monitor. For my computer. Every time I make a joke like this, I feel obliged to mention that here in Ireland we are required by law to pay a licence for owning a television if that television is capable of receiving television. I am dead serious, that is actually a law here, look it up. But unfortunately, I end up in situations where inadvertently I end up consuming some sort of televisual broadcast content. I was in one of these situations a while ago, and I think I'm after coming across what may be, quite possibly, the most pathetic advertisement I've seen in a long time, if ever, at least from this side of the pond. An advertisement that not only speaks leagues about where we've come as a society, but is very telling about how those in charge of media see us common folk, us lay people. This advertisement comes to us courtesy of the Irish Sunday World, one of the many tabloid rags out there only fit for wiping down dirty bikes. And, well, let's just play it.
How long do you think they'll get for that armed robbery?
And what about that red card last night?
Do you think his wife leaked those saucy photos? If you had to speculate.
Excuse me.
Armed robbery, 25 to life. A clear penalty, get over it. It wasn't his wife, it was her lover.
Sunday World, your daily dose of what's going on.
Now, is it me, or does this quite literally feel like programming for the most socially incompetent, saddest and weakest minded people out there? I mean, I'm no Andrew Tate, sure I'm probably stronger than the world's strongest English nationalist, but man, if I've ever felt my entire species' intelligence be insulted in such a brash way. I mean, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, and as I previously mentioned, I hardly watch any broadcast television nowadays, so I could just be out of the loop on the state of things. But to me, this ad is so brain dead, it's almost crossing over into parody. Like, it's only a couple steps removed from being something you'd see in a Grand Theft Auto game. The thing is, at least the way I've seen it, ads oftentimes serve as a twisted projection of the reality of the times they exist during. With that in mind, the implications of this just get sadder. You shouldn't care about these things, and the only reason the ad puts forth that you should care about these things is mindless party gossip, so you can seem, what, cool? Around people you don't know? By being knowledgeable about things you don't care about? That's the best reason you have to sell your pathetic excuse for news? Everything about it just makes me feel like a sap for the crime of being human. I mean, I suppose crime gossip can be interesting, especially if it's pertaining to your area or perhaps may affect someone you know. But it's made clear the only reason this little squirmy embarrassment, who's supposed to represent the everyman, cares about these topics is so he can fit in. So people don't think he's uninformed. It's just preying on this very base human feeling of wanting to fit in. And something about that just upsets me. Beyond that, it's sports news and celebrity gossip, and like, if you didn't already know about either of these things in the first place, it's hardly as if you care. I know it's practically cliche to make this point by now, but it doesn't make it any less valid. The line, "Who do you think leaked those saucy photos?" is delivered by a woman, because it could only be delivered by a woman. Could you actually imagine the shit they'd get if it was a man saying that? Like, first and foremost, I know this is all hypothetical, but breaking it down, this is basically an ad that plays on daytime television where someone is openly discussing, admittedly in the most PG-friendly way, someone's nude photos being leaked on the internet. That's obviously what she's talking about, right? Now, anyone's photos being leaked online shouldn't be anyone's business, and it is inherently immoral to perpetuate them, but sure, thus is the nature of tabloid rags. But I can't help but wonder how it's still okay for the mainstream media to be promoting this really disgusting culture. Moreover, it's genuinely mad to me how things that would be considered casually sexist to say in day-to-day conversation in the current climate are perfectly fine, not only in real life, but in advertising and media, once they are delivered by a member of the opposite sex to that which would usually do so, aka men. Like just because it's a woman talking about it, that somehow makes it alright? I mean, look, I'll be honest. I may or may not have been under the influence of a little wacky tobacco when I first saw this ad, and maybe that's why it stood out in my mind in the months since. But even upon returning to the land of the sober, it still sticks out in my head and makes me wonder just how fucking stupid and sad do advertising firms think people are nowadays. Like, I'm certainly no young Sheldon, but this ad specifically just felt like an extra level of perplexingly stupid to me. A whole nother level of fucked my baked brain wasn't capable of conceiving. And I know ads oftentimes are just stupid for the sake of it, especially over in the States, but this is Ireland! Land of the thinking man. And more so, I don't think there's any self-awareness in this one specifically. I don't think it's trying to be intentionally dense. I think it wants you to take it seriously. Dead fucking seriously. I mean, could you actually imagine that? Taking this as seriously as I can for a moment? Ducking off mid-conversation because you don't have the cojones to say you don't care about this mindless shit? Fucking off and pretending to take a shit so you can read the bloody tabloids in the toilet? Like, is this fella stoned out of his gourd and having a panic attack or something? Does he think his entire social status rests upon his knowledge of current affairs? Is he autistic? But not autistic enough to be brutally honest in that oh so lovely way many are, and tell them, hey, I don't care about this vapid mindless bullshit and I think less of you for participating in it? I don't know. I do find it somewhat funny that if you freeze frame the ad, on the packet it says, quote, causes informed discussions, healthy debates, and the occasional diatribe. I can attest to at least one of these things being true, though it may just be a little more than occasional. You feckin' tabloid. Also, pause it a few frames later.
Hi, I'm Saul Goodman. Did you know that you have rights?
I mean, the whole analogy of going off to the jacks to check your phone for precious information that you somehow think will make people find you less boring, and how this is somehow akin to the act of one taking their medication? Something just feels off there. Like, it's a little too on the nose, even for me. Your daily dose of what's going on? How about your daily dose of the government getting caught with their pants down, and rather than pulling them up, they just start waving their dicks in the wind? I mean, look, everything about life and reality has felt a little heightened since the COVID era. I've never witnessed, in my admittedly short lifetime, the amount of division and casual distrust among one another that's going on nowadays. And I think due to all the people, especially kids and teens, but this applies to everyone who spent up to multiple years in lockdown, you know, depending on their grade of hypochondria and/or ability to be manipulated, there's been a substantial drop in people's sociability that still hasn't fully recovered. And I have a funny feeling this ad was made with that in mind, with the intention of taking advantage of it. I get it that young fellas nowadays have a hard time holding conversation, even I'm guilty of it. There was at least a good couple years there where the majority of the time, not all the time, but the majority of it, even if I was talking to those closest to me, those who I trusted and held close, I could hardly think of anything to say. It was as if after a certain point through COVID, a lot of people straight up forgot how to hold a conversation, how to read social cues and how to pry for information. Like, at least for me, it wasn't as if I didn't want to hear or learn more about what you had to say. It was just as if the words, what makes you say that, had left my, and seemingly everyone my age's vocabulary. Big ups to Mr. Clark's English class, by the way. That's a very important and useful phrase. With all that said, this mindless, painful, gossipy small talk that's reliant on a rag not fit for wiping your arse isn't the way forward. People should be talking about things they care about, and shouldn't be afraid to shut down or straight up cut off people if all they're capable of discussing is information that's fed to them that has absolutely no bearing on their own lives. These types of people, whose own lives and thoughts are so uninteresting they have to rely on tabloid grade gossip to feel any sort of intellectual stimulation, aren't worth talking to, and these types of conversations, at best, only serve as icebreakers for hopefully getting into something more interesting, but oftentimes they don't. So yeah, this ad was just so bafflingly dumb, and I wanted to say something about it. Like many a great punk band have put it in the past, turn off your TV. Talk to people you care about things you care about, because life isn't infinite, and more often than not, these sorts of things just aren't worth your time or the limited space on your mental hard drive. I guess if I have to give it one thing, it is well framed and well directed. Like, whoever directed it or did the cameras or whatever, I hope you go on to greener pastures, because your talents are being sorely wasted producing propaganda of the lowest tier. I mean, this ad, purely visually, it's almost kinda Kubrickian. Just with TikTok timing, because, you know, it's an ad in 2024, and ads are expensive, especially in 2024. But it is fitting in a sense, as Stanley Kubrick was quite interested in advertisements and how they were capable of telling complex stories in such a short amount of time. It's just a shame that in this case the story being told is kind of depressing. That, or I just hate small talk. I don't know. Who lives for small talk? Who goes to house parties for the feckin' small talk? I'd much rather chill in the corner and listen to an autist rambling about their hyperfixations in excruciating detail. Or, you know, be the autist in the corner rambling about their hyperfixations in excruciating detail. You guys ever watch the Saw films? I know critically they've always been panned across the board, but I think they're a very interesting exercise in psychology and how the human mind and spirit can spend years feeling down, but when put to the actual test of life versus death, can and will find a way to persevere. I know as the series went on it managed to get sillier and sillier, but I still think the later films managed to have redeeming properties that shine through. Like how 6 manages to serve not only as a horror movie, but a scathing and well thought out critique of the absolute state of the American healthcare system, with our main character Jigsaw being declined potentially life-saving insurance purely because he's deemed not financially viable. I think this is...
I'm waving my dick in the wind. I'm waving my dick in the wind. If it all goes right, I'll be in your arms tonight. But I'm waving my dick in the wind.
I'd love to see him succeed in today's climate.